Hello, everybody. So I did my IT interview with our site tech administrator, Sal Zapian. He said I could use his name, so I got permission for that. He is a great guy who loves his job. He likes to goof around with the kids, as well as with those people that he works with. Just to give you like a little bit about him. Um, his regular and irregular duties. So regular duties, everyday duties are troubleshooting software and hardware issues. We have Chromebooks, we have Dell, we have MacBooks, we have MacBook Pros. So he, on a daily basis, is troubleshooting the different software and hardware issues that come up from having all of those different devices. He creates a lot of training material for the staff for testing administration. So we have, what is it called? Our standardized test is called the PARC. But the students also have one called MAPS, which is like a diagnostic test for them. They have SBA, which is like their graduating one. And there's a couple more, and they're all online. So a lot of what he does is creating this training material, with screenshots so that all the teachers know what they're supposed to be doing. Right now, his biggest project that he's working on is the one-to-one project. I've been lucky that I actually got to be like on a tech group I just wanted to observe what they talked about and different things like that. He was in charge of it, and they decided to go one-to-one from 7th through 12th, and so right now that's his biggest project is how is that going to happen, what is that going to look like, and what do we need to do to make sure it's successful. And they talked from everything about professional development to their capabilities that they have to creating, we're in a rural area, and so the students don't always have access to Wi-Fi. And so that's another thing that they discussed in that that group that I was in. And so that's one of his biggest projects right now. And then he supervises the site techs at various schools in the district. So he will go from the high school to the middle school. We have 5 different elementary schools, and so a lot of times he's running interference between the IT guy and maybe an upset teacher or an upset principal and not understanding why they don't have access to certain websites and different things like that. His irregular duties, he conducts surveys, so he does a technology survey with both teachers and students, and he usually analyzes those. Troubleshooting network problems, so if we ever have a network problem, a lot of times he'll have to go in and do the troubleshooting himself. He's a backup for the network as well, which he didn't completely explain, but I will take his word for that. And then he's covering other schools when in need of an IT personnel. So every school and every site has their IT personnel, and if they're absent, then that's usually when he has to go and do that job. So that's kind of what he does. And then the last one is setting up for standardized tests. And I don't know why the and is there, but yeah, setting up for standardized tests. Like I said, a lot of times they have to make sure that the network is working and capable of holding all of the computers that will be on it for PARC, MAPS, SBA, all of those types of tests that the students go through. The next thing that I went over with him were advantages and disadvantages of having technology. So I presented them to him as 2 different questions, but for the purposes of this presentation, I wanted to kind of put them back to back so you can see how many advantages versus the disadvantages that we kind of talked about. So a lot of what he talked about was how does it help the students. So he said his biggest thing that he believes is that technology helps with problem solving skills. I mean, that's really all a computer is when you can't figure out technology is how do I fix it? What do I need to do? Let's click here, here, and here, and let me try to figure this out. And so we had a great discussion on problem solving skills and those types of things. He says it helps with basic research and writing papers, which is true. You go online to know how you can find something, or how can I enter this library online and how can I use its resources like we do for APU. You also write your papers on Google Docs and all of those kinds of things, so you get all that stuff done. He said that the biggest thing that he liked about it is it allows for project-based learning, and this helps students to learn how to work towards a goal. So he really felt that that was like the biggest thing that technology as an advantage does. So was for project-based learning, and he was a huge advocate for it personally. He also believes that when students go to college, and I mean it's true, when students go to college, you are centered around technology. All your work is on technology. You get a laptop before you go to school so you can go ahead and type up your papers and do what you need to do. So he says if they have the familiarity from K through 12, their technology skills can only go be even bettered than somebody who hasn't. So like my generation, I didn't really have technology until I got into high school and then out of high school. So I feel like I'm catching up still. But the kids now, like K through 12, are getting technology right now in their hands. And so I am really looking forward to, and what we talked about in his interview is what he's looking forward to is seeing where technology takes us now. Like how what is going to be the academic proficiency of the students who are in schools now. He didn't really see a lot of disadvantages. I kind of pushed him to make him tell me some. He said that the biggest one that he feels is that the technology isn't used to its fullest potential, that teachers don't really know how to use it, so therefore it's just kind of being by the wayside. He also says that because it's not used to its fullest potential, that many times it can get in the way of teaching. And he also said that he understands that for some teachers it can be a distraction, but he felt, and I kind of understood where he was coming from, that if you have classroom management, you can take care of that. So the next thing that we talked about were cybersecurity and filtering content. So the cybersecurity that they have to follow is CIPA, which is the Children's Internet Protection Act. So they get E-rate or federal funds that help to supplement paying for Wi-Fi, paying for the bandwidth that we have and different things like that. But when you get these federal funds, you have to follow CIPA, which again is the Children's Internet Protection Act. So by law, they have to block harmful material from students. He said it's like pornography or even things that are too violent that they may find offensive. And then they said to ensure this, they have a web filter and a firewall in place. And even though they have a web filter and firewall in place, a lot of times teachers will ask, hey, I want my kids to be able to use this. And so in determining which web content gets filtered through, they only have one person. So when filtering web content, Sal, the guy that I interviewed, said that he doesn't think it's done well in Los Alamos Public Schools. He was very honest about that, which I appreciated. Only one person filters which websites are blocked and which are not. So when a teacher comes and tries to put in a requisition to get something unblocked, only one person is making that decision. And this is bad because a lot of times when he leaves, there's not always somebody who's going to be there. There's not always somebody who is there to be his backup. He has one other person who is his backup, but when they both leave, there's nobody there. Sal also talked about like redundancy. Things should be double checked. He felt that there should be a group or a task force that actually goes through and sees which websites are able to be filtered through and which ones aren't. And just having one person, he felt, was very bad, just in terms of efficiency. And he said that it did need to change. Especially with them going, the high school and the district going 1-to-1 in 2 years. So that was a big deal. And then I also talked to him about the bandwidth that the high school specifically has. So he explained it to me that since we're in a rural area, we have one pipe that comes up to the top of, we're on a hill, so that comes up to the top of the hill. So from that one pipe, it then splits and goes to the different sites that we have in our school district. So at that point where it splits, the input is 200 MB, 200 megabytes. And from there, when it splits, the high school has 100 megabytes that go back and forth that it works with. But right now, we're only using about 60 megabytes to 70 megabytes. And with 1-to-1, I asked him, is that going to increase? Are you guys going to have to increase your bandwidth right away? What's that going to look like? And he said he feels that the first year they won't need to. They'll be okay. They have enough cushion. but the following year they will need to increase their bandwidth. And unfortunately, as he pointed out, once you increase your bandwidth, you will always be increasing your bandwidth. So that was just kind of something there that is something to plan for in the next 3 years. They have kind of a 3-year cushion to figure that out. Right now, there are constraints on the access points to that pipe, that original pipe that comes up the hill and then splits. And he said it's because we are in a rural area. But they are going to be increasing the access points in the number of Ethernet ports and cables. They're also going to be updating old Ethernet ports that they have, because it's such an old building. And if you went into the library where they're in this tiny closet, and so things need to be done to ensure that their one-to-one will be successful and efficient. I also talked to Sal, if I go back to advantages and disadvantages of technology, and then we talked to him about cybersecurity and filtering content. So when we're talking about cybersecurity and filtering content, I talked to him about digital citizenship, and he felt that there needs to be a curriculum in place, but unfortunately there's two attitudes that are up here where we're at, and one is these are good kids, and then the other is that it's common sense and it's not necessary. And so because of those two mindsets, that he is afraid of the backlash that will come from it, and not having a digital citizenship curriculum in place before one-to-one happens. So it's something that they're definitely talking about. They have a tech site leadership group, and that is something that they're going over right now. And that's just something that I thought was pertinent, because we had just talked about that in our class, and then to go and hear it from somebody who's actually working in the area as well. And then that was my interview with Mr. Zapian. Thank you.